I was thinking a lot about California this week, thinking about where I live and what's up with California these days. And I do listen to a fair amount of talk radio on the subject on California and how things are going here. But I wanted to talk about some of the best and worst things about California as a whole. I've lived here all 37 years of my life, and I gotta say, I guess because I've lived here, I've always had just a want to live somewhere else. Just to go to a different place. Just to go somewhere, maybe where it's colder, maybe where it's, I don't know, maybe where there's seasons, more seasons, but California is such an interesting place, and especially now. There's a couple of different Senate bills going through, and I'm going to try not to make this too political, but I just want you to know what is at the forefront of, California here. First of all, the Healthy California Act. If you want to read up on this, go to healthycaliforniaact.org. And it says, when enacted, the Healthy California Act will guarantee that every resident of California will receive comprehensive health care services. It's like Medicare for all. Individuals will have free choice of licensed health professionals and services. Covered benefits will include services to keep people healthy mentally and physically, as well as those services that diagnose and treat diseases. In addition to emergency services, surgeries, and hospital stays, services such as home health care, daycare, and hospice are covered. Vision and dental care are also included. The Healthy California Act has been crafted to provide a single high standard of safe, therapeutic care for all California residents in a manner that is financially sustainable. Okay, so that all sounds great, right? That sounds wonderful. I mean, free health care for everybody. Universal health care for all 37 million Californians. That is so huge, right? Such a great thing. Now, guarantees health care to all residents, California residents. Choose any provider, no more surprise bills, no out-of-pocket costs for covered services. Eliminates copays for Medicare Part B, lower prescription drug costs. The advances from the Affordable Care Act will be improved upon in the new system. Huge cost savings from reduced insurance company bureaucracy. No more insurance company runaround, no more bill collectors. A payroll and income premium, which is higher for upper income earners, would replace insurance company premiums, copays, and deductibles. No more double-digit premium increases. Diverse participants will advise and help design the Healthy California program, including healthcare professionals and health policy experts, patients and ordinary citizens, representatives of labor and business. Now, is this a good idea? You got to think that this is too good to be true. And, well, it kind of is. The bill is expected to cost $400 billion with a B dollars. $400 billion. Now, if you divide that roughly by 40 million Americans, that means that each American would have to be paying $10,000 in taxes alone to afford this. Now, I'm not sure about the math or anything like that, but that seems outrageous. Every man, woman, and child having to pay that much. And it says there are some blogs here. Single-payer healthcare for California is, in fact, very doable. This is by Healthy CA, June 21st, so just a couple of days ago. And it says the California Senate recently voted to pass a bill that would establish a single-payer healthcare system for the entire state. The proposal, called the Healthy California Act, will now be taken up by the state assembly. The plan enjoys widespread support. A recent poll commissioned by the California Nurses Association found that 70% of all Californians are in favor of a single-payer plan, and with good reason. Well, no kidding. I mean, think about it. If you didn't have to pay for your health care, there's so much more in California that is so much more expensive than anywhere else. I mean, I think this would have to be a place where that kind of thing starts, right? I would believe so. So I'd like to welcome DJ T to the chat room. This is something you may like, Mr. DJ T. You're going to be hearing about single-payer health care and how California is basically giving the big F-U to the government. California is looking to separate and secede, it appears, and I'll talk about that a little bit more at length a little bit later tonight in the show. But enacting Healthy California would entail an overhaul of the state's existing healthcare system, which now constitutes about 14% of California's GDP. Lots of Kaiser Permanentes around here. In particular, it would mean replacing the state's private health insurance industry with government-managed insurance. Our study, which was also commissioned by the California Nurses Association, concludes not only that the proposal is financially sound, but that it will produce greater equity in the healthcare sector for families and businesses of all sizes. Okay, so here is the nitty-gritty. It says that enacting a single-payer system would yield considerable savings overall by lowering administrative costs, controlling the prices of pharmaceuticals and fees for physicians and hospitals, reducing unnecessary treatments, and expanding preventative care. We found that Healthy California could result in savings of about 18%, bringing healthcare spending from $331 billion, or 8% less than the current $370 billion. And yet they're talking about $400 billion to enact it. So, you know, that's exactly what that is. DJT says, when the fault line goes, don't ask for help. Yeah, when we have the big one, we cannot go to the federal government for help. California is out of that. So I think if our president had his druthers, he'd probably just cut California off. So, all right, check this out. Actually, it wouldn't be for... how would California cover the $331 bill, it says? Or $331 billion bill? For the most part, much the same way it covers healthcare spending right now. Roughly 70% of the state's current spending is paid for through public programs, including Medicare and Medi-Cal. This funding, totaling about $225 billion, would continue as is required by law. It would simply flow through Healthy California rather than existing programs. Ha-ha! There it is. Another revenue stream for the state of California. California has trouble balancing its budget as it is. So they're always enacting new taxes. When people started driving hybrid cars because of the environment, because there was too much smog, when people started paying a lot of money for gasoline, when there was a summer blend introduced as opposed to a winter blend, because the summer blend would be less caustic on the environment. All of these things cost taxpayers money. All of these things, an 18 cent a gallon tax for environmental types of regulations on gasoline. So much money is taxed out here. The sales tax is damn near 10% practically everywhere. So when people started paying less for gas because they're driving hybrid cars on the recommendation of the government turns around and adds another tax to gasoline. People who smoke. There was a new tax that added about $2 a pack to cigarettes. God, they're like $8 a pack now. $8 a pack. Can you believe it? And they're thinking, oh, we're going to get all this tax revenue, right? Wrong. No. Because if people die or quit smoking, you want people to quit smoking, where's that tax revenue going to come from? And the water system. I mean, when we were in a drought, we would conserve water out here. We were in a drought where we could only water our lawns once a week, take 5-minute showers, this and that and the other. When we get out of the drought, everything's hunky-dory, but while we were in the drought, the water agencies were not getting any of their income, or as much of their income as they had originally intended. So what did they do? They rose rates. They added extra fees and taxes. God, it's wonderful to live here in California. But it says here, and it's all because the state cannot manage its money. The state cannot balance a simple checkbook of what goes in and what goes out. The state will still need to raise about $106 billion a year to cover the cost of replacing private insurance. This could be done with 2 new taxes. Now, the numbers I had, the $400 billion was completely incorrect. That's what I get for listening to other radio shows and their whole thing. That's what I get for listening to other radio shows and taking their facts. First, California would impose a gross receipts tax of 2.3% on businesses, but with an exemption for the first $2 million of revenue. Okay, so if a small business makes less than $2 million of revenue in a single year, then they don't have to pay this tax. Okay, that sounds fair to me. Through such an exemption, about 80% of all businesses in California, small firms, would pay nothing in gross receipts tax, and medium-sized businesses would pay an effective tax rate of less than 1%. Not bad. Second, the state could institute a sales tax increase of 2.3%. There we go again. Another sales tax increase. But think about it. If you're paying for something and it's $1 and you pay 12 cents on the dollar for tax, that adds up a bit. $10 becomes $11.20. $100 becomes $112. And so on and so forth. It adds up, folks. It adds up. So, the tax would not apply to housing, utilities, food purchased for the home, or a range of services. Well, where's it going to come from? And it could be offset for low-income families with a 2% income tax credit. Okay. So, here we go again with California. Looking out for the lower income, but fucking the middle class. And that's kind of what California does. They look out for the low income, but they screw the middle class. And I don't understand it. As I've said before, California doesn't seem to want the middle class in California. Only the rich and only the poor. Relative to their current healthcare costs, most Californian families will end up spending less, even with these new taxes, and some will even enjoy large gains. Net healthcare spending for middle-income families would fall by between 2.6 to 9.1% and 9.1% of income. Most businesses would also see a drop in spending. Small firms that have been providing health insurance for their workers will see costs fall by 22% as a share of payroll. Not bad. For medium-sized firms, costs will fall by an average of between 6.8 and 13.4% as a share of payroll. Even most large firms will see costs fall by an average of between 0.6% and 5% of payroll. At the moment, about 2.7 million of California's residents have no health insurance. Another 12 million are underinsured. A large proportion of the remaining 60% of the population who are adequately insured still face high costs, as well as anxiety over President Trump's proposal to repeal and replace Obamacare. Okay, now this is one side of the coin. This is one side of the coin. What is the other side of the coin? I mean, what are the disadvantages? Well, people will talk about the having to pay more for sales tax, but think about how much do you guys pay in health insurance? It's pretty wacky, right? It's a lot. And how much do companies pay in health insurance? Once again, it's a lot. So this could turn into quite a coup for California. I mean, just reading it, it makes sense off the top, but there's always something different. There's always something there that is not exactly being mentioned. And I've noticed that with California and its legislation. There's always a catch. There's always going to be a catch. And there's always going to be just something that we don't see that's probably going to piss people off. So, what do you guys think of healthcare, of that bill? Do you think it's sustainable? Do you think it's a good idea? I mean, it's a great idea for the consumer, but do you think it's possible? And why aren't we doing this as a nation? If a state like California, that's the 7th largest economy in the world, can do it, why don't we do this as a nation? Why does there have to be this whole talk about a healthcare plan and all this talk and everything else about healthcare and what they're going to do with insurance companies? It's got to be the insurance companies. But more and more, I'm starting to think that being in medical insurance is not exactly the best place to be right now.